are you at a disadvantage if you've paywalled? You're at a disadvantage in terms of net new discovery because like it doesn't have access to your content. So if let's say you're an expert on trends in the music industry and you're writing about it, but it's behind a paywall, and I'm on GPT asking about trends in the music industry, you're less likely to show up. That's just kind of how it is. Now, if you've been more thoughtful about what pages they can crawl and what pages they can't, you could still work hand in hand with AI to say, look, here are my free assets. Let's keep us as an expert in this conversation and try to get people to our page to convert.
Hello, and welcome to the Media Copilot. It's a podcast that explores how AI is changing media, journalism, and content creation. I'm Pete Pachal, longtime tech journalist and founder of the Media Copilot, and I'm excited to bring you fascinating conversations with fellow journalists, media executives, and the people building how the business of news will work in the future. This week, I welcome Chris Andrew to the pod, and boy am I glad he's here. He's the CEO of Scrunch AI, which specializes in unlocking the secrets to getting the attention of AI search engines. Ever since AI summaries became a thing, I've been kind of obsessed with the idea of SEO for chatbots, the set of factors that an AI search engine might look at to consider a piece of content worth summarizing. This concept looks like it's going to be the next arms race in content distribution, and although it's similar to SEO, there are differences. For starters, AI queries are a lot longer than keywords. There's also less of what you might call surface area. An AI summary doesn't have as many sources, so there are fewer opportunities for a user to click through. And then there's the simple, fairly uncomfortable fact that these summaries are designed not to be clicked through, or at least the whole idea is to give enough information so clicking through to the source is kind of unnecessary. What this is creating is, in a word, panic in the media world. Chris and I dive right into that panic. Is it justified? What can publishers do to adapt to this new reality? And when is the AI search apocalypse coming? We get into all of it. And I've got to confess, I get a little more into the weeds on this one, particularly with regard to audience and SEO, but I think it was well worth it, and I hope you agree. And if you do find the conversation interesting, I'd encourage you to share it with a friend or a colleague. I'd also be grateful if you'd consider subscribing to the Media Copilot newsletter if you haven't already. And two more really quick notes. First, my 90-minute crash course on AI for PR and communications for Section School is happening again on May 29th. This session got rave reviews when I did it in February, and it's loaded with use cases that you can start applying to comms work right away. You can check it out at sectionschool.com to sign up. And lest you think I'm leaving journalists out, I'm working on a comprehensive AI training cohort for reporters and editors. And I'm currently recruiting people for a closed-door prototype of the cohort that's happening in late June. This is 2 sessions, and they're full of practical walkthroughs on how to use AI in your day-to-day as a journalist. Email me directly at pete@mediacopilot.ai if you want to join this invitation-only course, and be sure to put prototype in the subject so I know what you're talking about. All right. Now back to the show and my conversation with Chris Andrew, CEO of Scrunch AI. Chris, welcome to the Media Copilot.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
No, it's my pleasure. I'm super glad you're here because you, sir, live right in the area I am most fascinated by. And that's how AI is changing how we get information, really.
Mm.
So it's starting to become a go-to first stop for a lot of people. Chat GPT usage is spiking. I think the official numbers say something like 500 million users now. It's probably a lot more than that based on everything I'm hearing. Perplexity is getting tons of funding. And of course, Google, they have AI overviews, they have AI mode. Like the trend is pretty clear, right? I mean, AI search, AI enhanced information and summaries, they're already playing a huge role. It's just going to get bigger. So the thing is, everyone's kind of in a panic about this, understandably. I mean, linking and directing people to websites, I mean, that's kind of a fundamental way the internet economy works. Publishers simultaneously worry about AI summaries sort of harvesting their content and killing their traffic. And simultaneously, they want to sort of rank in those summaries or appear in them. My first question to you is the question I always pose to people who ask me about this, how do I rank in summaries, is Why would you want to? Why would they want to? Why do you want to rank in an AI summary if you are a content creator?
Yeah.
Tell me that, and then we'll get into Scrunch and everything you do.
Yeah, it's really interesting to be kind of 6 months in post launch. We spent about a year building the platform before we launched, but in November of 2024, I did a podcast where I said your best customer is an AI agent. And I think
Mm,
the reason you want to rank in an AI summary or in a GPT answer is that what that means today is not that AI crawlers and agents are necessarily transacting on our behalf. They are consuming content on our behalf. We're gonna outsource to AI what we don't want to do. And I actually
mhm,
believe we kind of like shopping. We kind of like making the end purchase and deciding. What we don't like doing is arbitrarily browsing, right? I believe the word browsing is inefficient by the very definition. Browse. Like, I don't want to browse the internet for the things I'm exploring. I want someone to curate it for me. That's why I ask friends for referrals. So when I think about why I want to rank in an AI summary, an AI overview, a GPT answer, it's because I'm flipping my word of mouth referral network from a lot of my friends and family to a AI platform that deeply understands me. I'm outsourcing that tedious task of comparing 10 credit cards in a spreadsheet to a GPT comparison or an AI overview. And so the very simple question of why is because humans move towards simplicity. And I believe we're outsourcing browsing. That means that if an AI agent or crawler is your best customer, the first thing they are consuming is language. They're consuming your content and you need to show up.
so many questions from that answer. Great answer, by the way. I love the idea of in your first answer, you've gotten us to think about not just human traffic, but bot traffic, which was definitely somewhere I wanted to go, whether it's agent, bot, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
And up until now, I guess the consequence of what you're saying, which by the way, I think is kind of indisputable.
Mhm.
Like I think you're dead on about like AI creating this efficiency in our informational consumption by really taking over the browsing part of it. Um, how do we do that in such a way that the damage is minimized? I guess is the question, and with some acknowledgement that efficiencies will inevitably lead to sort of shakeouts, right? And some of the um I guess brokering of information that went on now just probably doesn't even need to happen, or it's just sort of happening with robots, and maybe that does lead to some casualties on the side of the road of this informational superhighway. But um how do you do this carefully, I guess is what I say. And I know, understanding that it's not entirely up to you to do it carefully, but like I want your perspective on this.
Yeah. I think back in January or February, one of my hugely influential tweets that I think got 2 or 3 likes, just to kind of get the level of impact it had, said the internet is going to look very different.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is, who have we designed the internet for? And I think we tell ourselves we designed it for ourselves, but then you go try to use it and you're like, I don't know if you've ever been on a recipe website, but you see a life story, you see 3 videos, 2 email captures, like you can't find the ingredients to the recipe. I don't
Yeah,
think we designed it for ourselves. Like, who is that designed for? It's designed for the Google bot. It's got all the keywords, all the backlinks. I think we need to move to a simpler internet. And I think when OpenAI released their operator agent, one of the early kind of impressive tests in this world of like agents acting on our behalf, which is where the world is going for the things we want to outsource. They released a stat. I should have the exact number, but look it up, verify for me. It was something like the OpenAI operator can complete 68% of tasks on a website, like on average, across hundreds of thousands of things they've tested. Then in a footnote, the average human can complete 72% of the tasks on the average website. So my question is, like,
mm,
we've ended up with this complex web, drop downs, JavaScript, interactions, because we've designed for a mix of humans and a crawler that incentivizes strange things in the Google ecosystem. I believe when I say we're going to see a very different internet, how do you do this without ruining your current go to market strategy? You simplify. You start to think
mhm,
about AI crawlers are looking for clear, structured answers, right? Like, what type of content am I looking for? I'm looking for facts. I'm looking to round it out and make sure that the authoritation you're putting forward on your website is valid across, your competitor sites and your third-party sites. I think we'll see a move towards, and we're seeing this with our customers, new data sets coming online to educate AI crawlers and agents with the source of truth for a given business, a move to have accuracy across key third-party sources, to have consistency from what your brand site says to what your partner sites say. And then I also think we'll see a reduction in complexity, a move that doesn't punish your current Google rankings and your Google presence, but starts to cater to this new consumer of content. We have some really interesting infrastructure tests we're running with our enterprise customers showing just how much of an impact you can have by presenting a simpler experience to a crawler and agent and delivering outcomes in that mode. So I think it's the question that all the buyers are asking, which is like full panic about AI search. If I'm showing up, how am I showing up? What can I do about it? SEO is still the foundation, but we're going to see a new version of the web in terms of the experiences and the interactions that AI working on our behalf expects and needs to see compared to humans.
Nice. That all makes sense. I love how you sort of broke down that a mixture of things. A lot of them technical in nature, but some not. Can you expand on that a little bit to what a lot of my audience thinks about, which is content strategy, right? It's like, okay, now I'm convinced, if they're convinced, that I got to rank an AI search, whether it's for humans reading summaries or just the rising agent internet. What do I do, right? Like what sort of content will get the attention of these things? I've looked at the data. I've talked to a bunch of people. I have my own thoughts on it. I don't think this is settled by far, but I also feel like there are some broader strokes that are starting to be take shape. Tell me what those are. What are you seeing in terms of what content works for ranking in, I guess, AI search or SEO for chatbots or whatever we're calling it, which will probably be my next question.
I'll comment on that first. My honest hope is we call it search. I think we should call it search. Like when you search for something, you want an answer. And so I think anytime there's a movement, you try to spin up a new category. But I think the bigger opportunity is we're still searching. It's a new customer that's searching. It's AI working on your behalf. And whether it's AIO or AEO or GEO, it's like the ultimate outcome is getting a faster answer for a human intent. And I think that should be thought of as search, and all search is becoming AI search. My favorite conversations are people like, well, I haven't used AI search yet, but I love the summary that Google's giving me at the top of the page so I don't have to click on links. You're like, okay, powered by Gemini, AI summary. If you read the footnote, it said AI overview, but like people move towards simplicity. On the content strategy side, you've got a moving target, right? There's 6 or 7 models that matter. It used to be just Google, right? You've got an opportunity, though, to measure a concrete set of things. Like with our clients, we're measuring everything from the frequency with which these crawlers are hitting your website to the frequency with which your brand is present in the industry topics and categories you care about across tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of prompts. We're measuring your position and sentiment in those answers. Now, when you start to tear that apart and look for insights, you're starting to see content patterns of what AI crawlers are prioritizing, whether that's your content, third-party content, or net new content you bring online to improve the results with what you want to see. So what I would say is like you need a comprehensive approach to monitoring. That's why we started there, to be able to know what you're trying to improve upon. And you can track your presence, your position, your sentiment. You can track citations. And with an integration like we have with a Google Analytics or a Looker or our enterprise API to connect into an Adobe experience platform, you can see your referral traffic and your conversions. So I think there's a lot more to track when it comes to what content is working. And then I try to pull the themes out of that to say, this is the type of content strategy you want to double down on. A couple things I'd point to. We have a lot of content resources on our public site, kind of top 5 tips for engaging more with AI as a consumer. But things I would point to are, these AI models are looking at human intent. They're not just looking for keywords and backlinks. They're basically saying, okay, what's the intent of this prompt? And looking for a simple text-based structured answer to it. What's the emotion from the human? What does that tie to in terms of what they're looking for? But simple structured text is what we're seeing works best, and making sure that that exists in multiple places, right? If you just have it on your website, but everybody in the world talks negatively about you, you're not going to show up positively. And so a third-party content strategy, I think citations are the new backlink, right? Being present from a brand perspective on third-party sites that are influential in these models is hugely important to showing up. So moving target, monitor proactively, do it daily. These are the types of things we're working on, with our enterprise customers.
Nice. I've already learned something. That makes a lot of sense, though, that the citation makes even more sense in an AI world than the link. Obviously, the link, it still is the currency in the SEO
It
world,
is.
but
Yep.
just getting mentioned is an AI thing,
It's huge.
because we can
Yep.
figure that out. Um, Man, so many questions. I'd actually love to pivot back a little bit to the technical side, if you don't mind,
Sure.
because one of the things publishers, once they sort of look at this issue and the crawlers and what the third party apps and toll booths they can sort of put on,
Hmm.
they think about like, how do I, like, quote unquote, protect my content? You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And whether that is just a blanket thing in robots.txt and
Sure.
trying to forbid crawlers, or do they partner with one of these third-party sites that's trying to sort of build a marketplace and have these token-based systems? There's other ways to paywall, and there's the getting down to snippets. And again, I'm not quite an SEO guy, even though I know a lot of smart ones. But it's like that's getting to a point where can publishers even keep up here? Like, how
Hmm.
should they think about like protecting paywalling, having their content selectively appear, and how much control do they really have? Because that's sort of the unofficial thing about this, is like a lot of this is kind of the honor system, it feels like, and
Hmm.
some of these crawlers just kind of do what they want. I mean, what are you seeing out there, and what would your advice be to publishers trying to navigate this world of protecting and monetizing content in a bot world?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, my number one piece of advice is to media publishers, that side of the world, is to stay open. Like, it is changing so fast. You need to be thoughtful about your assets. And in this world, that is your content. You might have a paid strategy. Um, but there's probably components of your content and expertise and authority that you want to reveal to the models to stay in the conversation and move people towards your paid strategy, right? If people navigate directly to your app or website and you have a pretty tight acquisition loop and you feel good about it, maybe you can block these things entirely. I wouldn't write that strategy off for a certain segment of the media and publishing world. What I find from some of our customers is they started with blocking things entirely, and then they realized that a huge part of their business model was podcasts, conferences, events, and they weren't showing up at all. Now, why weren't they showing up at all? Was because they had blocked these crawlers from accessing the content on the site because they had a paid content strategy. And so you want to go through that with a fine tooth comb and say, well, maybe you don't want to block the URLs about your free podcasts or about the conferences where you sell tickets for events. Maybe you do want to block your paid content, but maybe you want to preview some of it to get people to that page. And so I do think there's quite a bit of examination. I think many people leapt in completely one direction or the other when this world started to shift. Some people are like, we're blocking these things entirely. End of discussion.
Right.
We'll revisit it. And I'm still in meetings where people are like, they forgot they blocked it, right? They were like, oh, we made a call 2 years ago because we heard it was predatory. It's like, you're not showing up and you've got a product, service, experience to sell. Like, well, why are we blocked? Because somebody in IT blocked it 2 years ago. Um, Media is the trickiest category here. Now, on the other
Mhm.
side, you've got some partners working with an OpenAI to carve out paid content strategies. Like, look, we're going to actually license some of this from you and pay to use it in our models, in our news feeds, in our real time tickers. That's another thing, right? So being open and proactive and partnering, I think it's a fun ecosystem right now. The folks at GPT, the folks at Perplexity, they'll talk to you. Like, you can reach out. These are small teams that are nimble and trying to figure it out alongside you. Their intentions are not bad. And so I think we've seen positive impact from connecting customers and partners directly to models to have a discussion about what they can do about it and try to find an effective path forward.
I think you might get some emails after this podcast from people who may not have had success with reaching those teams. So watch for that. Um, that's all makes a lot of sense. For the people who so let's break this down. So you have your content represented in an AI summary. Perhaps it's even linked or cited. Um, and there is a certain percentage of people that will find their way to your site. It's the data seems to show that it's much smaller than traditional search, which is expected. But break that down for me. Like what's the profile of someone who does that? Because they say it's, much smaller, but they are people who are much more inclined to engage with your brand. And tell me what the profile of this sort of click through AI person is, and then does it make up at all for the fact that you're just getting less overall in terms of people going through?
Yeah, great question. I mean, there's two things there. I mean, I think your default user is a little more affluent, a little more tech forward, and is like experimenting. Now, if I'm in traditional search, the frightening part is everyone seems to habituate to AI search. They use it,
Mhm.
like, whoa, this was kind of cool. This was better. Now, in terms of the click through rates, I think you're going to want to be thinking. I don't think anybody's got a perfect metric right now to be like, your presence score means this many people are seeing you. You can see
Right.
stations and you can see referral traffic, to your point. You could make up a number to extrapolate backwards. Like, well, for every click we get, there's 20 people that see it. I think we'll probably get closer
Mhm.
to approximating that number. I'd be careful of taking it as truth from anybody, myself included. I think we're all trying to approximate it based on a lot of third party kind of data sets and inputs.
Yeah.
But I think the thing I'd be thinking about here is you'd be silly to bet against the models, right? And so this idea that like right now, the models are doing a lot of top of funnel research, browsing, and then maybe people complete their purchase by moving back to Google or going direct to a website. When these models decide to move more into the transactional outcome driven searches, or like, for lack of a better phrase, like directional, like I want to click through and
Yeah.
buy now, they just haven't optimized for it. You're seeing the very early tests around it, but it hasn't been core to their business model. Like if you had told me I was going to pay $20 a month to search better on the internet 5 years ago, like you're crazy. Like Google's free. That's the whole point. It's like I'm paying $20 a month to use GPT because it's way better. And if they tackle the simpler problem of getting me to the product or service experience and making that easy, which they will, you're going to see that portion of search move over as well. So I think when I say stay open, you're silly if you're dismissing, well, this is current state and it doesn't apply to us. It's like this is changing every day. Like in the last 2 weeks, there was X number of shopping tests. Now, like, what do the shopping tests mean? Well, you should be monitoring it. Is there an
Mhm.
integration from GPT? No. Like, are they testing things with Shopify? Yes. Have they given you an ability to integrate your product feeds? No. Has Perplexity? Yes. Like, actually just sort through what you can and can't do and stay proactive in monitoring and stay open to the changes. But I think right now it's hard to pinpoint the exact volume of activity in a model. If you're extrapolating from referral traffic, it's
Mhm.
growing. To your point, I mean, I think GPT is probably closer to 800 million users now, and we're probably
Mhm.
well over 2 billion monthly actives in AI search across all platforms. I think every company in the world is now saying, okay, we got to pay attention to this. This is unfolding faster than we thought.
Totally. And like the transactional component, I did, when I was a tech journalist, I was very involved in like product reviews and sort of the
Mm,
model there. And then that obviously moved into the commerce space. So it was all about like getting people to transact on your site. And to your point, like what you say, we're just starting to see these early kind of experiments, really. Like I think Perplexity's shopping features only a few months old,
mhm.
and there's probably a couple others, but they're very sort of basic, just seeing what people even do.
Yep.
I'm actually more interested in um, the other side of it, like who gets what cut of that, and
Mhm.
or whose transactional link is surfaced.
Yep.
And this touches on a couple of things. Um, One, it's sort of hand in hand with what we were just talking about on sort of this smaller percentage. And I don't know if this would be the case with right in the AI experience, but like you can almost imagine an amalgamated sort of transactional link, assuming the data from multiple sort of review sites fueled it, and they all
Mhm.
have some kind of, it gets complicated, you think, but it sounds like you could sort it out on
Mhm.
some level.
Mhm.
The other one, though, and this is probably where I'm more interested in, is the pay to play aspect of this.
Mhm.
Now, there are these licensing deals primarily with OpenAI, but some others
Mhm.
that are essentially giving them certain publishers favored status within,
Mhm.
I guess, AI search results. And that's, we all understand why this is happening because of the legalities around copyright. And,
Mhm.
it's just one of these interesting consequences that makes it quite different from traditional search,
Mhm.
right? Which it at least isn't supposed to work that way.
Mhm.
It's supposed to be sort of a ranking based on the quality of the information. Um, so I guess like we're getting without getting wildly speculative, like um, how do we sort of reconcile all this short of a copyright ruling that goes one way or the other? Like you want something that is sort of fair and gives you good information,
Mhm.
um, but at the same time uh, is giving publishers enough say in what sort of goes on in these. I don't know if I'm making sense, but or if I'm
Sense.
zeroing on a question, but it's more of a list of concerns around this
Yeah.
thing and just how radically different it's going to be
Yeah.
from what people are used to in the SEO world.
Yeah.
Help me sort it out. Like what
Yeah.
are your thoughts on this, particularly with regard to the pay to play aspect?
Yeah. Me and 1,000 lawyers to sort it out. I think I won't hold my breath on a clear copyright ruling because I think like
Yeah.
there's a bit of water under the bridge here in terms of how the models got to where they are, right? And so,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
OpenAI be a nonprofit, given the fact that it scraped basically everything it could possibly get its hands on, whether it, maybe that's a public good to assess one argument for it. And they're clearly a commercial entity here. I don't know that we'll get a ton of clarity from that. I think if you're a publisher and you're waiting for that, I would be very closely monitoring what's happening to your audience. Like, are your metrics ticking the wrong direction because people are just consuming in a different place? I would be ready to adapt really quickly if that were the case, right? If you have a lock on your market because your brand is so critical in this world, because like if people go directly to you, be it app, be it site, not intermediated, you've got a leg to stand on, but you just have to
Hmm.
honestly assess what it is that's driving customers to you to transact. And so on the media side, I think it's to be sorted out. I think we'll see standards emerge from different models that say, look, opt in, this will be your cut. I like what you're sharing on like maybe these are the 5 links that influence the purchase and there's some sort of microtransaction. I think it's interesting that these models have said they really don't want to replicate existing state. So Perplexity's
Hmm.
testing new ad formats. GPT thus far hasn't really tested ad formats. They're trying to push on subscriptions and API usage and things like that to drive their business forward. I've always thought it'd be kind of cool if it was like, really, may the best content, best product, best service win, right? And it's like, okay, don't think of it as an ad, but pay for all traffic. Like, there's a terrible, crazy out there idea I haven't heard anybody talk about, but maybe it's like there's a microtransaction just for getting a referral from an AI platform. It wasn't an ad.
Hmm.
It was just like if you are optimized to show up there, they're getting rewarded for directing somebody to you, but it's not a marketplace to kind of compete. Like, I mean, one of the
Hmm.
maybe
Interesting.
one of the ugliest things to me in traditional SEO is like you search for Nike and you search for a brand and you see the other
Yeah.
brand first because they just paid for it. Like the amount of
Yeah.
searches that I'm trying to get to X website and I'm intercepted to go to a competitor site because they overpaid for it. Maybe the future of the internet doesn't look like that. Maybe it's like, hey, what's the consumer intent? Help them
Hmm.
drive that outcome. I think AI is trying to help us in most cases. Like we'll see where it goes. But I think it's fun to speculate a little bit. I don't
Mhm.
think we should build product in areas where it's unclear. I think we need to build capabilities around what we can monitor today, what we can optimize, and we'll move towards the future that we want to see kind of unfold.
I want to zero in on something you mentioned earlier on sort of like the broad recommendation of keeping your content open.
Yeah.
I remember I was actually going through the Ziff Davis lawsuit a bit because I was writing about it. And one of the things they actually cited in their complaint, so by the way, this the Ziff Davis lawsuit against OpenAI, to be clear. I think in case anyone listening wasn't sure what I was talking about. But they filed it a few weeks ago, and they mentioned that because their content is open, it's generally not paywalled, that actually puts them in kind of a weaker position content wise, right? So because of their with the implication being that paywalled content is just kind of harder to get at. Is that a that's obviously coming from a big media company, um but that does seem to sort of contradict a little bit of what you said in terms of like open is better. Is it that the open is better, if you do these other things?
Mm.
It seems like is probably the lesson. how do you parse that
Yeah, I mean, I would
with
definitely
going open?
segment this by vertical. So I think open
Hmm.
is 100% better if you're in the business of selling a product or service or experience, and the internet is an important channel, right? So like,
Right.
let's segment these things. You sell hardware, you sell software, you sell nights at hotels, you sell tours. Like, you need to be discovered, and you're competing for attention, and these things are now brokering attention. So that's pretty critical. I won't claim to be an expert on sorting through the media landscape in a world where your content is your product, because
Right.
you still need people to get in front of you to consume your product or said subscription for whatever it is. Are you at a disadvantage if you've paywalled? You're at a disadvantage in terms of net new discovery, because like, it doesn't have access to your content. So if, let's say, you're an expert on, you know, um, trends in the music industry and you're writing about it, but it's behind a paywall, and I'm on GPT asking about trends in the music industry, you're less likely to show up. That's just kind of how it is. Now, if you've been more thoughtful about what pages they can crawl and what pages they can't, you could still work hand in hand with AI to say, look, here are my free assets. Let's keep us as an expert in this conversation and try to get people to our page to convert. You're still kind of competing on the merit of your content. Now, that's still tricky. Like, I'll be the first to admit that is a tricky
Mm,
balance, because like, just flip on deep research and GPT, and these things are pretty deep on a lot of topics. And so if your business is selling a perspective, a written perspective, you're now competing with something that can spin up written perspectives in the tone, voice we want to hear it pretty quickly, and they just keep getting better. So
mm,
that might not be the most positive message if you're in the media world, but I would be trying to balance the reality of the trend that's unfolding with your existing business model. And I think it's why we've seen a lot of media publishing move towards paid strategies with B2B, right? If you think
hmm.
about Forbes or Wall Street Journal, others, a big part of their business these days is like paid content that is crawlable. Like, I'm XYZ software company. I want my product described in this way. And I create a post, a thought leadership post. I pay Forbes to do that. I pay Wall Street Journal to do that. And of course, that piece of content is open to being crawled by GPT, because I want my content accessed. And that's a business model that works along with
Hmm.
podcasts or events. But if you're just in the business of selling news, it's not any rosier than the shift from physical print to online. I think it's a tricky downward shift
Right.
that we're trying to navigate.
We talked about this a little bit, but I want to think about it in the context of ads, which is the AI summary experience. And you can tell I'm not an ad guy because we're about 30 minutes into this conversation. And I'm just bringing up ads, even though we talked about commerce, but whatever. Um, but like, right now, I think there's a little bit of ads, I think, in overviews. Maybe it's like a strip at the bottom
Yep.
and stuff like that. But um, generally, most of these experiences, whether it's Chat GPT or what have you, it hasn't gone to a full ad model.
Yep.
Perplexity's dabbling, I feel like
Yep.
that's fair to say. Um, but is this inevitable? Like, and what does this sort of take on? Like you mentioned, the whole sort of sponsored link in Google being kind of generally a bad experience.
Mhm.
Are we destined to get that way? And it seems to me like the main thing is transparency. Like, you certainly don't want your summary influenced by some commercial thing, like you mentioned earlier. Um, but I just don't know if that's a red line for all these companies. And
Mhm.
if it is there a way to label it? And like, do you think are the rules should navigate how that unfolds
Mhm.
in AI summaries in the future?
It's probably worth clarifying the sponsored link in Google, that is the best thing in the world for Google. I mean, they unlock the literal best business model in the world. And then we as consumers, I think we kind of distrust that first page of results. We know it's pay to play, but it's still kind of easy. It's just getting displaced by something easier. And so I think
Yeah.
GPT, Perplexity, Gemini, what they have going for it is like, consumers have chosen to put aside a little bit of the fear and distrust because the experience is that much more delightful. So my
Mm,
bet on why it's unfolding the way we see it is like, yes, these things hallucinated early on. We didn't care. We
right.
hallucinate sometimes. Like, they're right more than we're right. And then you compare it to the old world where it's like, well, I know these results are biased because we all pay for these results. So I'm going to play with this thing that is like, maybe working a little bit, surprisingly, maybe it's working a little bit more human. It's reading and trying to map intent to answers. And so I think the reason we've seen GPT be really slow to move on ads is because building trust only increases stickiness. And the stickier this thing is, the more likely I'm moving my entire behavior over to AI search, whatever platform I
Mhm.
choose. And the better it gets at helping me buy the product when I'm ready to make the purchase, the more cuts they're going to be able to take along the way. So does it make sense to sell a bunch of ad space? Maybe not a ton right now. Like, why is Perplexity testing it? Because they're the upstart. Like, they don't have the same access to capital that a GPT does. I mean, they have incredible access to capital, super smart team. I think they're really smart to be experimenting with new ad formats because they need to figure out a business model along the way here. And I think they'll arrive at it, with rapid testing. A number of our customers have participated in their early ad tests. It's a fraction of the Perplexity audience that's being exposed to that. So I don't know what the future of ads looks like, but I think the reason we're going to see the leaders being careful is because trust is such a huge element as we move away from something known to something unknown.
So, asking a little bit about the back end of things, real quick, if I
Mhm.
can nerd out on the publisher side, I guess. Like, imagine, like, well, what does a fully mature like AI search console even look like? I know there's some primitive ones now, and I'm sure you guys have yours, but what would you sort of need to do? Because like we touched on this earlier. You mentioned sort of the hundreds of thousands of queries that might lead to a certain type of summary, and obviously these are done on the fly. But like, you think of the world of keywords,
Mm.
which was at least reasonably quantifiable, to now a world of like very lengthy AI queries, and how does that even look at scale?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think the last benchmarks I saw on this was the traditional Google query is like 2 to 4 words,
Hmm.
and the traditional AI search query is like 10 to 20 words. And the long tail of that is like 50 to 1,000 words, like depending on the context window, right? It's not 50 to 1,000, but it's long. Like, we're doing a lot of
Hmm.
voice based search. And so that presents complexities. Like, I will sometimes meet people who are large companies tracking this stuff manually. Like, we hired an intern, they're sitting in there running prompts and copy and pasting into an Excel sheet. And you can start to see where that falls down. Well,
Yeah.
you're asking a bunch of questions about your brand. The model wants to make you happy. It starts telling you your brand's the best, you're number one, and then eventually it'll even go so far to be like XYZ company, your company in parentheses, in the actual interface. It'll be like, I'm just trying to do what you want me to do. You're clearly working for this company doing a ton of searches. That is not representative of what your potential buyer sees. And so we've taken a lot of foundational work to get this right, starting with buyer personas. So when a company
Hmm.
onboards into Scrunch, who are you selling to? All right. If you're I mean, take a random one. If you're Nike, you're selling to an aspiring university athlete, college athlete who's trying to go from high school to college and hopes to get sponsored one day. You're selling to the mom of three who's running her first marathon. You're selling to the elderly woman who just wants a safe pair of shoes to walk in. They're searching for different things, browsing for different things. And so we have a pretty advanced persona platform that's mapping the intent of the buyer to the answers they're actually getting. Then we move into prompt generation. So we have a bunch of tools around taking third party data inputs into our platform to transform your traditional organic keyword searches into intelligent, data informed prompts, right? So it's like, one thing we do is we take your traditional keyword list, you upload it into Scrunch, and we transform those into representative prompts. That goes through our prompt generation platform. It's looking at Google AdWord keyword trend data. It's looking at third party panel data that's available to many vendors in the space, whether that's clickstream data or other data that you can acquire to see like what types of things are people asking in these models. That's very informative to create prompts around the themes, tags, personas, and areas and geos. Like, different languages are going to get different prompts. We have companies running dozens of languages through the platform for different geos around the world. A lot of complexity to mapping it all. That's why I think you want a platform to automate it, to pull the insights out of it. And I don't think anybody's got that perfect yet today. There is no console from GPT. You can't go to GPT and say,
Hmm.
tell me everything that these people are asking about my brand. If you ask it, it'll make up some answers, but they are not sharing
Right.
any of that data on what people are doing in the platform from a privacy and security place. So many vendors in the space are doing creative things to approximate that with well informed sources. I would not be basing your entire strategy on estimated volumes, estimated expectations. It's grounded in as much truth as we can all get our hands on, but it's kind of experimenting and iterating from there.
Got it. It's if SEO is chemistry, it sounds like this is still at the alchemy phase.
Mm-hmm.
Um, really
SEO's,
fascinating stuff.
I don't know if SEO is chemistry.
It's
It's the
just
foundation for a lot of this, but it got into some pretty complex chemistry over the years of good chemistry and bad chemistry to get the output to the page, the first page.
definitely. Yeah. There's been some complicated equations
Yeah.
made out of it, and it kind of went into some bad
Yeah.
reactions over the
Chemistry
years.
wasn't my strong suit, so I
Yeah.
didn't start
Well,
there.
yeah, we'll get away from that analogy, but like, I would like to talk about intent, which
Mhm.
is a thing that keeps coming up. And if any of my listeners are intentional about where they need to shift their mindset to really understand this idea and prepare for this future, what would be the way you would recommend that they shift their thinking? What's the one thing they should be um, sort of thinking about as they prepare for this AI summary future?
Yeah, I think the fastest way to shift one's thinking is to reflect on your own customer journey and to reflect on your customer's customer journey. For most people, you've now been exposed to AI search in a way where you've had kind of a wow moment, where you've been like, whoa, that was cool. That was not how I expected this to work or to look. And you're like, okay, I'm going to start using this way more. I mean, the number of I talked to a very affluent friend who's talking to ChatGPT 2 to 3 hours a day. And he's just
Hmm.
like, I'm brainstorming with it. I'm riffing with it. Right. I've talked to some folks that are have made it like the button on their phone that like when you press that just the side button, it activates it and they're
Yep,
chatting with it. Right.
myself included.
You go, right? Like this is really impactful. So like when I think about intent, what's happening in your own life? And then start to extrapolate to your customers. Go talk to your customers. Maybe they're the type that they're going to use Google search for the next decade and they're going to be upset as Google search becomes more AI driven. That's fine. Get that data point. Don't trick yourself into anything, but start monitoring what's happening here. I get a lot of questions of like, is SEO dead? No, SEO is not dead. Go look at your referral traffic. It's Google's still driving 90% plus in all cases, in almost all cases. Like we are seeing the shift happen in our customer base, but you'd be crazy to walk away from Google as a primary source of business for you today. So when I think about that intent, I started with myself. That's why we started the company. Like we started the company back in late 2023, spent a year building before web search became a component of AI search. Like you'd ask it a question and say, my data is a year out of date. I was like, I'm still using this more than Google because it's easier, right? And then
Hmm.
when web search got introduced, it's gotten crazy. Everybody's like, okay, this is way more delightful. So I think when you think about intent, it's simple to map it to your own experience and to your customer's experience. But my thesis is the customer journey is changing. This is not about AI search and monitoring. This is about the fact that humans are visiting fewer websites. And the question is, how is that going to impact your company?
Yes, that is the question for sure. I feel like it's after talking with you, it's not the down note that it usually is. I
Yeah.
feel like it's kind of more of a neutral note, and it's just a reality, and that we can throw technology, some data, and just the right mindset to it, and we'll get through it,
Yeah.
or we'll find a path into this future. Chris, this has been great. Thanks so much for letting me nerd out with you here for the past 40 minutes or so. It's been awesome. Where can people find more about Scrunch and what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so scrunchai.com is our core domain. You can pop on there, request a meeting with us. Core focus is really enterprise customers that are navigating this shift. You can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn. So scrunchai.com is the company, and then Chris Andrew on the various social channels. So, yeah, thank you for having me. I love talking about this stuff, and I appreciate you pointing out. I don't think this is all bad in doom and gloom. I genuinely think search got to a convoluted place that was complex and challenging for humans to get what they needed and wanted. And this shift surprised the ChatGPT team. You look back in their kind of like release cycle and they were just blown away by the reception of this thing. It's playful. Like when all the other things we've introduced in AI over the years were a little bit like too formulaic. Like this thing made mistakes the way we make mistakes. We actually gave it some grace to grow, like the way we do our kids, right? So I think there's something really interesting happening here, which is going to be a positive, and you need to protect your company as the shift occurs. But great brands, great products and services are going to win. And we're looking to partner with, companies that are in that category to increase the opportunity of them staying, front and center in the middle of a new customer journey.
Awesome. Well, we're going to have to check back with you sometime in the future and see if that opportunity has been realized and where things are at. And hopefully that console gets a little more built.
Excellent.
Thanks for listening to my conversation with Chris Andrew of Scrunch AI. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd appreciate it if you'd just take a minute to leave a rating or review for the Media Copilot in your podcast app. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Media Copilot newsletter and check out mediacopilot.ai for our classes on AI for journalists, PR professionals, and communicators. Be seeing you in the future.